What's up, everyone? You are tuned in to Three Questions and a Song, the podcast where the name says it all, except it doesn't. On this episode is going to be Roberto Montoya from Icons of Industry. You can find us live all over the internet currently. We're on XRP's radio, we're on Build a Scene Radio, we're on music from the 412, we're on First Angel Media. So if something happens to the feed you're on, just pop over to one of those and let's get started. Hello, sir.
Hey,
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Apologize for being late. I don't know how that works. Are people just waiting?
So
tuning out?
So what I did was at about 8:45, I was like, I bet he doesn't realize that there's a time difference. So I changed the time.
Gotcha.
So now we're in the middle of the times.
Yeah.
So I became familiar with you on XRP radio. So you're in the States, but I had to go to Scotland to find out about you.
Oh man. Okay.
Not really. I listen to radio from Scotland, but so let's start out with, if I remember correctly, it's the band is you, and then you have people from all over the world that help play.
Yeah, so that's why I call it a collective instead as opposed to a band. I mean, it might be a subtle difference, but I'm trying to indicate that people kind of come and go. So musicians come in and out. I do try and work with people locally whenever I can. So I like to have like a core set of people that are local that I can get together with in the same room and then jam, but sometimes that's not possible. So yeah, I have like a network of people that I work with to put music together on recordings.
So when you come up with a song,
yeah,
how much input do the other people in the collective have after you come together?
Yeah, so I give everybody basically full creative freedom. The only restrictions that I impose is on lyrics because I think we were talking a little bit earlier. So I'm a Christian, so my lyrics are coming from that perspective. So not everything has to be about God per se, but when I'm talking about a subject, I'm talking at it through the lens of Christianity. So I have a certain perspective on the world. So my lyrics are coming from. So if people want to contribute lyrics, they just have to kind of conform to that perspective. In other words, like for example, like I won't sing a song that glorifies some like debauchery, for example. Just a simple example of something like that. But other than that, musically, I really like when other people bring in their perspective because that I think adds another dimension to the sound as opposed to just me. For me, like a lot of solo people can do that. I mean, I could if I wanted to, I could play different instruments, but I think that will give it more of a one-dimensional sound. So I let people just do whatever they want. But then after everything's sent to me, when I'm putting a track together, I will edit and cut and move. For example, a keyboard player might send me his keyboard line all the way through the song, and I might not want the keyboard to come in until in the chorus, for example. So I'll just cut out that part, and then or maybe I'll move it around. So I do have, as a producer, putting the producer hat on, I'll do that.
Yeah. How do you mentioned your lyrics, like are they usually like based on something that happened in your life, or are they just come to you?
I think it just different themes. So some of them will be about my life, typically like a kind of a testimony song. Well, I'll talk about my experience, where I came from, where I'm at now, and how I got here. So those are the kind of things that I might talk about. Sometimes I'll have a theme that I want to, like for example, Flames of Change. That's the, I noticed in our advert we have the cover to that song. That's our latest single that we've just released. So that is a topical song about basically the final judgment of Babylon as reflected in the Bible, in the book of Revelation. So things like that. Sometimes the song will just be a poem. So just words that can flow, and it doesn't really have a a concrete topic people can interpret in different ways. So poetic themes are also there in the music.
You just made me. I did a guest on a podcast last night as a roundtable, and Jim Morrison came up and
Oh,
the fact that
yeah,
most of his songs were poems beforehand.
right. Or
But
like, like Kurt Cobain, like
yeah.
libido, my mosquito, that kind of nonsensical rhymes and stuff like that. Those are fun too. So
So now I'm going to move into what I call my I'm going to call it an odd question, but what is the best pizza you've had because you're a musician?
because I'm a musician.
Yes, so you have to link it to maybe
Gotcha.
when you're
Oh,
recording or
that's
at
an
a
easy
show
one.
or
That's it. So right away it comes Hoex Pizza on 6th Street in Austin. It's literally just like you're walking by a couple of different places and there's like a wall and there's a window and it's a hole in, and it's called Hoex Pizza. So when I'm downtown 6th Street, performing or doing a show there, like that's always a stop. And Rapalo's is another one. But yeah, I just off the top of my head, Hoex, because it's called Hoex Heavy Metal Pizza.
oh cool.
And they're always playing heavy metal music when you're up there ordering. You can hear music. And as a matter of fact, I discovered a couple of bands by walking up there to order a pizza, and then I'm like, oh, who's that? And then they tell me who the band is, and I'm like, oh, cool. And I had never heard, and it kind of catches my ear. So yeah, that would be my answer to that.
I just a few years ago when I right after I picked up the name Build the Scene, because I was running under AK Music Scene, which you can still access, but there was a group of people from Austin that came here to Pittsburgh and basically took a look at our music scene and came up with this real thick document that I only read part of about what Pittsburgh needed to do to fix their music scene.
Yeah.
But Build the Scene's website is actually loosely based on the Austin, Texas website. They're
Oh, really?
yeah.
Okay.
I went there and that's what I used as inspiration. So there's a pretty vibrant music scene there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some would argue that there isn't, right?
Well,
So
that happens here
yeah,
too.
yeah. So I got here around 1998, the end of 1998. It was billed as the live music capital of the world, right? And I think it still is. So I have a background in computers and music. So when Austin hit my radar, like, oh, that's cool. Austin has tech, Austin has music. So when I got here, I really started to plug into the scene. And I don't know, maybe it's because I don't go out as much, but it seemed like there was more going on live music wise here in Austin. And maybe it was, obviously COVID slowed some of that down, but yeah,
Yeah, it
there's
definitely had
there's
an
a
effect
scene,
here.
but there's a scene for sure. I mean, there's a good scene. There's metal here. There's a lot of like blues and country as well. That's not really my thing. And lately I've been getting into a lot of electronic music. So I don't know if you caught any of that stuff that I'm doing. So I'm working on that's under my name. If Roberto Montoya, that's a solo. So I have a different profile with a different type of catalog that I put out on my own solo kind of brand, so to speak. And it's electronic. So I've been getting plugged into the electronic music scene here in Austin.
If you could sit down with any songwriter in the history of the world and write a song with them, who would you want to sit down with?
In the history of the world, huh?
Yep. So
Wow.
anyone living or dead, basically.
Yeah. I would say King David would be my pick. I don't know if you've heard of King David.
Are you talking about from the Bible or
Yeah. The King David. He wrote all the Psalms, right? So he wrote, and those are actually songs. So I would love to hear, it mentions in the scripture about different instruments like the 10-string lyre and different exotic type of instruments. And I would just love to hear what that sounds like, and his voice, his voice would actually cast out demons and stuff like that. So I would love to sit down with King David and do a jam.
I think that's the furthest back we've ever gone. So this next one, I'm being metaphorical. I think that's the word I want. So what I'm really asking you before I ask the question is, what is a goal you haven't reached? But the way I'm going to ask it is a little different.
Okay.
So Robert Johnston in the Legends of the Blues went to the crossroads and sold his soul to the devil to become a better guitarist.
Right.
So if you were at that same crossroads, why would you be there?
If I was at the same crossroads, why would I be there? Well, I guess at this point it would be more like a make believe, because I don't know if I would be there. You know what I'm saying? So I guess if I was in an alternate universe, like in the
That's why I led with the
Yeah.
really it's a goal that you want to
Yeah.
reach.
Yeah, I think yeah, it would be along the same lines, to be a better musician, to be able to go beyond the limits of where I would be at the time, in terms of skill and musical ability. So I guess I would fall back to that same type of motif.
So you can. We're going to stick with that, alive or dead. You're going to sit down for dinner with
Yeah.
4 people. One of them has to be a musician, and the other 3, there are no caveats. You can pick whoever you want.
Yeah.
Who would you want to sit down and have dinner with?
Oh,
Now, keep in mind, they're all going to be with you at the same time, so you may not want to pick people that'll clash.
Maybe you do want to pick people that'll clash.
That's true.
It'll be more fun. Wow, that's an interesting question. So I think who would I pick? It's escaping me right now. Let's say one has to be a musician, the others don't have to be musicians.
Correct.
So I would say maybe Beethoven for the musician. I would just like to hear his stories and kind of hear something from his experiences. Maybe Newton would be one. Who else would be one?
What do you think
Yeah.
Newton would think if we told him that everybody thinks an apple fell and hit him?
Yeah, right. Da Vinci would be another interesting person. Now, of course, none of them probably speak English, but let's see, one more.
One more.
Let's see, maybe Burt Reynolds.
If he shows up, I'm going for a ride in the train.
Yeah.
You kind of help me segue into the next question. Okay, so you're leaving a show.
Yeah.
And as you're leaving, you notice there's a DeLorean sitting there with its door open and a flux capacitor in the back seat.
Yeah.
Which means you can borrow it because you can bring back the exact same time. Nobody will know you had it. Where are you going in time, and what band are you going to hang out with while you're
there? Well, that's interesting because I would tend to want to go in the future. So okay. I don't know what bands would be in the future. You know what I mean? I guess I'd say I'd go into the future and I'd want to see like who is the hottest band at the time and then go see them.
Why am I blanking on his names? The guitarist from the Rolling Stones.
Richards?
Yeah.
Keith Richards. Yeah.
Keith Richards. Yeah. He'll probably be there.
He'll be there.
I tell you what, let's take a short break and and we will listen to Flames of Change.
Cool.
And we will be right back.
All right. I'm gonna grab a chair real quick.
Okay.
Want your music featured with the best of Pittsburgh's local artists? Music from the 412 is seeking bands and solo artists from Pittsburgh and beyond for our channel and exclusive shows. Simply visit musicfromthe412.com and look for our submission form under the Contact tab. Whether you're looking for an interview feature, concert promotion, or airtime for your latest song or music video, Music from the 412 has you covered. Get exposure for your music today.
Oh, it flip-flopped us.
Did it?
It did. There. Hey, so you already told me us what the song was about, so
Yeah.
we'll move on from that.
Okay.
If for some reason you hired me to be your bus driver on a tour,
Yeah.
what music would we be playing in between tour stops?
What music would we be playing?
I know it seems like a weird question, but really it's who influenced you.
Yeah. So there's I mean influences are cool, but in the early days, it was the rock, the prog rock stuff, like Led Zeppelin, Yes, Mahavishnu Orchestra, that kind of thing, right? So like progressive rock was what I was listening to when I was younger, and then then it got into like heavier stuff like Black Sabbath, and then metal, Maiden and Ozzy, Judas Priest and all that stuff. And then after that, the grunge scene, right? The '90s stuff, Soundgarden, Nirvana was pretty cool too, but I was mainly into like Alice in Chains and Soundgarden stuff. And then and then pretty much got into like also electronic music along the way as well. Square Pusher, Aphex Twin, bands like that, Crystal Method.
That is a cool band name and a terrible band name at the same time.
Yeah.
So recently on both my podcasts, I've kind of been asking this question. How does it feel? Like, take me from the point where you start writing a song to when it gets released, like right before you release it. What's that feel like, knowing that you're at the end?
So there's obviously a sense of satisfaction knowing that something was accomplished, right? So there's different emotions that are occurring throughout the different phases of the songwriting process, right? So when there's a lot of curiosity in the initial stage, what am I going to write about? What instruments am I going to use? So there's a lot of curiosity and digging into that. And then once you start actually laying things down and recording parts and pieces, then it becomes that's the most stressful part for me, because you're having to think and like what fits here and what goes there and all that. And then lyrics are the most difficult part for me. So that's where I can get stuck there sometimes for months, like not being able to come up with lyrics that I'm happy with. Normally as a songwriter, I normally write melody first. So I'll come up with a riff, on the guitar or the keys, normally, and then I'll come up with a melody line, a vocal melody line that goes on top of that. And then once and then I'll sing like a scratch vocal with phonetic, what I call phonetic placeholders, basically just gibberish that sounds like words that would fit that melody. Once I record that, then that's what I use all the way through till the very end. I'll even send that out to my drummer, to my bassist, to my musicians. Everybody's hearing those vocals just so they can get a sense of the melody and the phrasing. And then at the very end, I'll go back and I'll actually do the real lyrics. So by the time I'm done and I finish the final lyrics and I'm happy with them, that's when really the elation comes in. Like I feel really good and the satisfaction starts to kick in. And then after that, then again back to more stress about, okay, how am I going to release this? Promotion. That's a whole other side of things that is not a lot of fun, but
and that's something that's different today than it was in like the 70s. And that brings me to Gene Simmons, who Kiss comes up a lot. I'm a Kiss fan. He says that rock is dead, and I kind of disagree with him. I just think that the music industry as he knew it is dead.
Yeah.
And like, could he, if he was in his 20s now, could he survive where the artist is doing all the work up front, which is really what's happening? The labels look for people that are already making money before they sign them.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was, they were looking for talent and they made the talent make money.
Yeah, right. They cultivated the talent and they kind of developed, that's artist development, right? What was it called? Yeah, artist development was the expression. So the developers, they saw the potential, and then they would groom you and cultivate you into the artist that they wanted, and then that's how it went. But I think that still exists, but it's definitely different now in this time.
That's, you can record in your own home. In fact, I'm sitting in my own little studio.
Yeah.
Literally, it's in my living room.
And there's musicians right now that have millions and millions of, sometimes billions of streams and views, and they did it all in their bedroom,
Mhm.
and they're not on a label. They're independent. So I think obviously the internet has really changed the game. But it's almost like I don't know if there's a recipe or a formula you can just follow A, B, C, and then hit big. I think there's a lot of different variables that have to come together, and I think the who you know and all that still applies even today.
If you were going to talk to yours, we're going to use that DeLorean again, but this time we're definitely going back.
Going backwards, yeah.
If you're going to talk to yourself when you first were a musician, what's one piece of advice that you would take back and say, hey, you need to know this?
Yeah, I think from a music perspective, I would tell myself to work on other instruments. I focused so much on the guitar in my early days. That's still my primary instrument. I'm picking up other things now with, but I would tell myself to spend time on other instruments, like especially the keyboard, piano, and maybe drums. Yeah.
Can you remember the point where you knew that you were going to be a musician? Like, what clicked?
Well, I was a musician in band. So when I was in middle school, actually, my parents, they put me in band. So technically that was, I was a musician at that point. So that was their idea. I actually didn't like it at first. Then I started liking it because it was more of the camaraderie and the kind of hanging out with friends, and like, going to do a band performance at another, going over, spending overnight and all that. So the whole scene was, I think, was more of what I got into as opposed to the music itself. But then about 16, 17 years old, I saw that my dad played guitar, and then that caught my interest in my ear. So I was like, the he'd play guitar, and then I started getting, like I said, into that other guitar music, really, I guess, prog rock, and that piqued my interest, and I want to start playing electric guitar. So I think it was my dad is the one who really sparked that curiosity first, because it was like a nylon string, so it was more like, it was very simple. Like, he was not a classically trained musician or anything. It was just simple strumming, simple chords, but just, I guess, just him playing and then hearing those sounds, like, oh wow, that's really cool. I want to learn about that.
What are you a gearhead by chance? Like, is there a certain piece of equipment that you can't go on stage without?
No, I'm not really much of a gearhead. I'm more focused on the songwriting, and as a matter of fact, my right now, I just got a it's called an Eventide H90. Some people may know it. It's an effects unit, like about that big, and it's got all the effects you can think of, delay, chorus, I mean, you name it. But before this, I had a small pedal board that had, chorus, delay, distortion, and then I had an auto wah, it's called an envelope filter, and that was it, and then my tuner. So I intentionally made that choice back, and I had that for years. Like the last, I would say, 7 years, I would use that, because it forced me to focus on the songwriting as opposed to twiddling with knobs and fiddling around with different sounds, which is really fun, but you can do that for days and days and never write a song. So I made that intentional choice to do that. But now, just like I said, just recently, I'm now into exploring more of the different sounds, and I think it's because of my work with electronic music. I just put together a rig. I might show you right now if I get my laptop and kind of show you where I'm sitting right here, and I've got my keyboard, I've got the effects unit right here, I've got a MIDI controller, and I've got my setup. I was actually jamming right before we got on on the phone to on the podcast to talk about everything. But yeah, that's so now I'm more into like figuring out, okay, what kind of fun, pieces of equipment can create interesting textures. Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of not the song part of it, but a lot of dealing with technology recently. We are setting up a podcast studio at Music from the 412, and
Cool.
so that was last Friday. We were working on that, and then today our new Roku channel app has been released, and
That's awesome.
you are going to be the first new podcast that's uploaded.
What? Nice. So you'll be able to go back and watch it after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Do you have a Roku?
Yeah. Hold on, let me turn on this light here. I'm kind of it got dark all of a sudden. I got my window open and now it's getting dark outside. Is that better?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I do have a Roku.
Yeah. So, once I actually edit the video in, it'll go up on the app is just Music from the 412.
Cool.
And you'll look for the 3 questions in a song series, and it'll be in there.
Nice.
Probably later tonight or tomorrow.
All right. Cool.
We literally just released it today. All of the season 1 episodes from Music from the 412 were already on there, and so you're going to be the first official upload since it was released.
Very cool.
Let's see, we have about 3 minutes. What can I ask you?
Did we play the song? I don't know if did we play the music?
I didn't, because the social media will mute it. But I'm going to edit it in. So it'll be on the piano playthrough will be where the commercial was.
Okay, cool. Is it? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, let's get this out of the way. Where can you be found on the internet so the listeners and viewers can find you?
Yeah, so for Icons of Industry, it's iconsofindustry.org. So if you go there, you just go there, and that's that's the main page, and then from there, there's links to YouTube, Spotify, Bandcamp, the whole thing, Instagram, and all that. So that's for Icons, and then my solo stuff, I'm only right now on Instagram and on Bandcamp. So it's R Montoya 512, as in the Austin area code, R Montoya 512 at Instagram. That's where I'm at for IG stuff. And then you just look for Roberto Montoya and on the Apple Music and Spotify and all that stuff, and you'll find me there. It's like I said, that's more of the electronic stuff. But
very cool.
Yeah.
And what do you have coming up next? Are you releasing music?
Well, I was going to talk to you. Yeah. I was going to mention, so I don't know if you could play a clip of. I've got 2 new tracks that I'm working on for Icons of Industry. I'm planning to release them as a split single, 2 songs as a single, called Heavy Locust. So the title track, Heavy Locust, is going to be a very heavy guitar driven track with synthesizer. I think it's going to be reminiscent of that old school prog, odd meters. It actually has 4/4, 5/4, 6/4, and 7/4 time signatures all in one song. And I could talk a little bit about time signatures, but so that's Heavy Locust. And then another one's called Eloquence, and that's more of a ballad type of track it's got mandolin and harp. There's a harpist from Austin. Her name is Sarah Hall. So she's on there. And it's got piano and stuff. So I've got those 2 tracks queued up. I'm still I'm in the lyrics phase right now. So all the instrumentation is done except for an Eloquence. Megan Burson, she plays violin for the Icons of Industry project. She actually we have a song called Cedars of Lebanon that she played violin and viola on. Awesome musician. So she's adding some violin and strings to Eloquence. But the Heavy Locust is done, and I'm in the phase where I'm writing lyrics and recording the vocals. So all the instrumentation, like I said, is done. So I can even send you a clip if you wanted to play some of that stuff. So that's what I've got with Icons. And then with my electronic music, I just released a melodic techno EP with a techno producer from Austin named Rhys, RHYS. And we did a collab on some melodic techno. And that just dropped, and I'm working on a cassette release for that EP. So it's going to be like 10 copies, like super limited edition. It's going to have the EP on side A, and then side B is going to be a lot of like B-sides, just unreleased demos and like cool remixes of stuff that we haven't released and all that. So yeah,
I still have a cassette player in my car.
Actually, one minute, real quick. All right, I'm back. Check this out. Can you see this?
Yes.
So this is the prototype. So this artwork is done by an artist named Mitchell, Final Micho on Instagram. He did the custom. That's like a cartoon version of me and Reese, right? And it's all he did this layout.
That's
so
really
this is just a prototype. This is like the tape's gonna be purple, but that's just a Sony that I grabbed that was the similar color just to get a sense of what it'll look like. But it's in production right now, so again, that's coming out. And yeah, I got some other synthwave stuff that I'm doing.
Very cool. We are definitely over time.
Are we over time? Okay,
yeah.
Sorry.
But don't hang up. I'm gonna talk to you after we go off the air.
All right.
I want to thank you for coming on episode 102. And we're going to talk off the air about getting that music and putting in rotation. So everyone who was tuned in or is watching this or listening to this, make sure you go to iconsofindustry.org. Look up, it was R Montoya 512.
Yeah, and Instagram.
On Instagram.
Yeah.
And go to buildascene.com and you'll be able to find all the information that was on this episode.
Cool.